In this go-for-a-punch world in which we live, where we spend our days with SpongeBob SquarePants and our nights strolling London after midnight, you may think you've heard of everything we've yet to find. But there is more unknown in this world than you could possibly imagine. This is lesser-known lost media.
Welcome back to Chimera Miniatures official YouTube channel. I am your host, Mr. Sean, and today we have another video featuring 5 lesser-known lost media entries. Currently, I am taking a break from the Neckbeard Nice Guy and Incel videos because a person can only take so much negativity for only so long, so I figured I'd delve into the less terrible side of the internet. These days, lost media videos are all the rage on YouTube, but I've noticed a lot of people tend to cover the same things: London After Midnight, Saki Sanabashi, Yeah Beavis 1, and considering the relatively small fan base of my channel at the time of recording, I have less than 50 subscribers. I figure if you're listening to this video, you've probably heard about those a million times from other YouTubers. So I figured if I was going to make some lost media videos, I might as well cover some things you probably haven't heard of yet. So this will be volume 1 of my lesser known lost media series. The way this will work is each video will have 5 entries. The first 4 entries will be normal, totally safe for work entries, and the 5th and final will be the not safe for work entry. So we're also going to put a little bit of a spotlight on lost media that maybe is not so family friendly. While in a lot of my videos I do the ad right at the beginning, for these I will actually be doing my ad right before we switch over to not safe for work. And now that I've let you know how the format's gonna go, let's get into the entries. All 5 of today's entries are currently in the status of existence unconfirmed. That won't always be the case, but I thought it was a good way to start. Up first, we have The Funhouse of Dr. Freak, which is a lost Ghosts of Fear Street book by R.L. Stine, supposedly written in 1998. Now, while you probably know R.L. Stine from his Goosebumps series, he actually made a series before that called Fear Street, which you may know from the Netflix series that was based on his work. Unlike Goosebumps, Fear Street was made for an older audience. It came out in 1989, and unlike Goosebumps, where kids never died or anything like that, there was murder, gore, psychological horror, even sexual content in Fear Street. Then in 1995, when Goosebumps were already really popular, there was a new series that was kind of more like Stine's Goosebumps books, and it was called Ghosts of Fear Street. Now, these weren't actually written by R.L. Stine, though they did have his name. They were ghost written. This series ran until 1998 with over 30 entries, which is pretty impressive for just 3 years. And it's not really clear why they decided to end the series after that. I remember reading several of these books. I liked them just as much as Goosebumps. But here's where we find The Funhouse of Dr. Freak, which would have been the 36th book in the series, and there is no information about any books that would have come afterwards. Now, it's not entirely clear when this was supposed to come out. Varying reports say it would be in May of that year, some said August. Even the most commonly agreed on release date is November, and it was likely pushed back because near the end of its run, the book series switched publishers. Now, this is actually really weird because there are other rare books in this series that are hard to find. However, the 35th book, Horror Hotel Part 2, Ghost in the Guest Room, doesn't make any reference to it, which is kind of weird because normally in, whatever book you're reading, it would then at the very end or on the back cover would have, coming next from this series would be this one. So that begs the question, if even the 35th book doesn't reference this as being the 36th, where did that come from? Well, it actually was first mentioned that it was going to be the 32nd book in a publication about books in print, and it was in the upcoming books section. It's speculated that the first book under the new publisher, Hide and Shriek 2, was actually a last-minute addition because they wanted to, bring awareness, because actually Funhouse appears mentioned before Hide and Shriek ever did. Well, Hide and Shriek 2 ever was. So we're not exactly sure what books were supposed to come out in what order. Goodreads does have a plot synopsis, though it's not entirely sure where it comes from and if it's supposed to be believed, but it reads the following.
When Joe breaks a funhouse mirror at a carnival, he releases an exact double of himself. Can he stop his evil twin before he takes over Joe's life?
So one of the interesting things about this synopsis is that the main character is named Joe, and in the previous two books, which were the Horror Hotel duology, the main character was named Joe Turner. So this leaves us with two options, assuming that this is real, because this book was mentioned well before the duology that it supposedly comes after. One option is that because these books were all written by different people, that the name Joe is a complete coincidence and it has nothing to do with anything. The other option being that the book was rewritten to include the character of Joe Turner after it kept being pushed back. But honestly, if we have no evidence for this book, why do people still think it might exist? Well, because none of the information really seems to match up. Amazon has an ISBN number listed for it, though you can't actually buy the book. It actually, if you check that number, it is a real number. It has Funhouse listed as being published in November of 1998 by Golden Books, and that's not necessarily concrete evidence because that could have been assigned before it was produced, but there's even a cryptic review from 2005 on Amazon.
5 stars nice. By Amazon customer on January 19, 2005, I love this book. When the kid met Dr. Freak he was scared. I remember it when I have monster dog. There was said send a photo of you and your creepy canine and will be featured in a Ghosts of Fear Street number 36. Sale on mid-August 1998. If you feel like reading this, order it.
This review is very rambling. It actually says very little about the actual book itself. Definitely kind of feels like a troll post. The one thing that gives this weird review some credence is its reference to the contest from an earlier book called Monster Dog, where the grand prize was a photo of you and your creepy canine would be featured in R.L. Stine's Ghosts of Fear Street number 36, which was supposed to originally be on sale mid-August of 1998, plus you'd win 25 copies of the books and a potographed photo of R.L. Stine and his dog Nadine. There's actually no records of whatever became of the competition, and it's assumed that when the book switched publishers, that it was just scrapped. Now, it's unlikely, but not impossible, that Golden Books would have made good on this contest and sent somebody 25 copies of Funhouse. However, it is also noted that Monster Dog never gave a title to what the 36th book was going to be, just that is when it would be, when the photo would be featured. And the last bit of evidence is that on R.L. Stine's official website, which has a complete listing of books he published up to 2012, it has Funhouse in the Ghosts of Fear Street section, though apparently a lot of the information on this site is sourced from other areas online. So, as for my personal thoughts on this, I don't think it exists. From what I've read and what I've found, there's nowhere where it's ever listed that it's going to be the 36th book that is a definitive source. In fact, it was listed to be the 32nd. I think it got scrapped and lost in the shuffle when the books switched publishers. I mean, if I had to guess a reason why, it would have been because that either one, Golden Books just wasn't interested in it, or maybe, who knows, maybe they had blacklisted the ghostwriter who was supposed to write it. But for whatever reason, when it switched over, I think this book, which was supposed to be book 32, was just scrapped and was never actually meant to be book 36. I think there was just enough information about this book before it was scrapped that people wanted to believe it was a real thing. The internet wants there to be a lost Ghosts of Fear Street book out there. I mean, it's kind of this cool mystery that a lost childhood book from a fan favorite series by under a fan favorite author's name, even though he didn't actually write them. And I think that's another problem, is since R.L. Stine didn't actually write this book and was never going to write this book, we can't just ask him if he wrote the damn book. I think if this thing existed in any shape or form, there'd be pictures of it. Somewhere on the internet, on Reddit, on Facebook, somebody would have taken a photo of their old Ghosts of Fear Street collection, and there would have been the Funhouse of Dr. Freak. I don't think this exists, but that's just my take on it. If you feel otherwise, please be sure to comment and tell me why. I'm pretty new and green to this lost media research. I probably missed something. Staying on the track of children's books, coming in at number 2, we have Redwall Book 23, which is a lost, unpublished children's novel that supposedly would have been written somewhere between 2010 and 2011. The Redwall series, which featured anthropomorphic animals, was a very popular series by Brian Jacques. While writing his 22nd book, Jacques died on February 5th of 2011, and that book was actually finished by a ghostwriter and published posthumously. And so if he hadn't even finished the 22nd novel, why do people believe there was going to be a 23rd? Well, here's where it gets interesting. Back in 2010, Penguin Publishing House organized a contest in which one participant would receive the chance to make a character that would appear in the next book of Brian Jacques' then popular fantasy series, Redwall. Now, there was a winner to this contest, and their username was Hyzenthle of Redwall, and they got in touch with the Redwall wiki and basically provided proof that she had been contacted by Penguin and told it that she had won the contest. They have a drawing by Redwall's official artist of her character, a hare named Riza Cartwell, and it was going to be, the illustration was mailed to her, uploaded to the wiki, but her character didn't make it into the 22nd book, The Rogue Crew. So you might be thinking, well, he probably died before he got to the part where she was going to show up, and that might be the case, but here is also where it remains interesting. Apparently it was well known that Brian Jacques, he didn't just write one book at a time. He would work ahead, he would work on many different projects at the same time, and that makes it possible that he was working on a future novel where Riza was intended to appear. But ultimately we don't know. So we know that there was a character who was supposed to show up, never did, whether that was supposed to be in the final novel that we got or in a future one that he had already been writing. So this supposed possible 23rd Redwall novel is either lost, unfinished, or both. So what's my take on this? Well, this is another one that I just don't think this exists. There may have been a rough draft, but I assume that would have been found. Like, I've not seen anything in this listing that shows that the author was cryptic or kept things secret or wrote in code. Someone was able to finish his novel, his 22nd novel, after he died, meaning that they were able to find enough of his work. So why wouldn't there also be things that they found featuring this character if he had been working on the 23rd novel? While yes, he probably had some brainstorm ideas for future novels, I think that this character was supposed to show up in the 22nd novel, possibly near the end, maybe in like a bit part, not a main character. And unfortunately, before he got to that part, he sadly passed away, and the ghostwriter, not knowing that he had intended to do that, did not include it. So sadly for that one fan, their character never officially entered the Redwall canon. A slight correction, apparently Riza is considered official, but they are the only official Redwall character not to appear in a published Redwall novel. That is my mistake. Still sad though. We now move from kids' books to kids' movies. Well, not necessarily kids' movies, but movies kids can enjoy. The unmuted audio from the Sirius Black death scene in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix back in 2007. So this movie, of course, if you didn't know, is the 5th movie in the Harry Potter series, of course based on the books. The film ends with a massive fight scene between Harry and his friends and some of Voldemort's followers called the Death Eaters. And one of these Death Eaters, Bellatrix Lestrange, ends up killing Harry's godfather, Sirius Black. Now, after Black's death, Harry screams in agony while being held back by Remus Lupin. There's an image on screen of this scene. In the final cut of the film, Harry's scream is muted entirely. Now, according to the director David Yates, he wanted to slow the scene down to allow the audience to allow themselves to process the death without interruption. However, there is a rumor that it was Daniel Radcliffe, who plays Harry's scream, was so painful that it made multiple actors cry, so they decided to mute it in post-production. Whatever the case was, the original audio of the scene has never been released. So, the Daniel Radcliffe part is probably a bit of an urban legend. There is a rumor that Radcliffe had lost a family member shortly before filming, and that kind of brought some realism to his performance. And the legend also has it that it made Emma Watson and Helena Bonham Carter and Bonnie Wright all shed tears, but there's actually no evidence that this actually happened. I think it's just kind of a nice Hollywood story. Though Emma Watson apparently did say that Radcliffe's performance brought tears to her eyes. I think that's probably where this started, and it just has kind of been milked. The most likely reason is given by the director himself, and it also, oddly enough, includes the effect being quote-unquote milked. Here's his direct quote.
I wanted it to feel quite operatic. That's why it's slowed down. And yeah, I wish I'd slowed it down even more, actually. In hindsight, I sort of wanted to really milk it.
And I honestly think that's the true story as to why it was muted. And since it was muted in post-production, the audio probably still exists somewhere. And maybe, I know a lot of fans actually want this to be released so they can see for themselves what Radcliffe's performance was actually like. And you know what? I think maybe someday they'll get their wish. Maybe not right now. I know there's a lot of controversy going on with this series and its creator, but there might be it might be included on some like re-release bonus, whatever the heck DVDs and Blu-rays become in the next 20 years. I definitely think this one will eventually see the light of day. Next we have Super Mario Bros. For the Commodore 64. Now I know what you're thinking, a Nintendo property being released on a non-Nintendo console, get out of here. But it wouldn't actually even be the first time. They did have a port of Donkey Kong for the Atari, which also was the first appearance, of course, of Mario, but Nintendo definitely stopped doing that because a lot of these ports were not the quality of the Nintendo versions, and Nintendo is very protective of their properties. So there is a rumored version of Super Mario Bros. For the Commodore 64 home computer. So Super Mario Bros. Was released in North America and Japan all the way back in 1985, and it was a huge smash. I mean, Mario is still synonymous with Nintendo, and this is where he started. Sort of. Donkey Kong originally, but this is where he was Super Mario. There was a rumor that a company named Orpheus was working on a port for the Commodore 64 in 1986, but there's a good chance that Nintendo denied the license. I mean, after seeing what happened with porting Donkey Kong over to the Atari, I'm not surprised. And actually, the first mention of this port comes all the way in 2005 from the website lemon64.com, where a user mentioned on a thread having played a disc copy of Super Mario Bros. On the Commodore 64 sometime between 1986 and 1987. Someone responded that it might have been the unreleased Orpheus version, but they didn't explain further. Nothing really happened with this story until 2012 when an article about it was submitted to GamesThatWeren't.com, but it added that it was canceled due to Nintendo denying the license, and the page noted the possibility that it may never have been completed or even started in the first place. Now, both of the thread and the article state that this would have been an official port, not like a hacked version or, something that was unofficial or edited to include Mario sprites, but nobody knows anything more about it. So I would say on this one, probably not real. And if it was real, it was probably a bootleg. Personally, I just can't imagine that if this existed, that there wouldn't be Mario fans out there who not only know about it, but have definitely obtained a copy of it. So I don't think this one exists. I think if it did at all, somebody had a bootleg floppy of Mario Bros. That somebody programmed for the Commodore, but it was never official. And if that's the case, it's most definitely lost. So before we get into the not safe for work entry of this video, give me 1 second please to talk about my business Chimera Miniatures. Those of you who are not new to this channel know that I both create and paint miniatures that I sell on eBay and Etsy along with other collectibles and anime figures, and that this channel is free advertising for that. This channel's not monetized, I don't have any sponsors, but what I do have is a whole host of miniatures and other collectibles that you can buy. If you like what you hear on this channel and you want these videos to continue, please click the links, please buy a mini, and if you can't buy a mini, please share this video around, because the more people, I always mess that up, the more people this video reaches, the more minis I can potentially sell, and the more videos I can potentially make. For some reason, I catch it after post-production and don't fix it, but I often say the more videos this video reaches, the more minis. I don't know. Sorry. if anyone's picked up on that, I do realize that I do that, and I don't know why. But so please, check out the minis, check out the collectibles, please make a purchase. Also, like, comment, subscribe. And so here's your last chance to click off this video before we get into the not safe for work piece of media. In 3, 2, 1. So for our final not safe for work entry today, we're going to talk about the 1938 Popeye and Betty Boop sex tape. So a lot of you have probably heard about the supposedly lost and unconfirmed unofficial Mickey Minnie cartoon where Mickey and Minnie were drawn having sex that was presented at Walt Disney's birthday party, and as the story goes, he pretended to like it, asked who made it. When it was revealed, he fired the animators and had the tapes destroyed. That's a pretty common, well-known lost media story. But what if I told you that there were two very popular characters from another studio that not only were drawn in a similar fashion, but that it was done by their creator as part of a thank you party for his staff? So Popeye started out as a comic strip character, but was later turned into a cartoon by Fleischer Studios. These were made and created from 1933 to 1957. Before Fleischer lost the ability to create the character when production shifted to Associated Artists Productions and MGM. Now, of all these cartoons, there was apparently a pornographic short that was only really ever officially shown once. And this story was first told to us in an article from 2003, where a journalist interviewed people from the old Fleischer studio. And as they tell it, in 1938, Max Fleischer, who created not only Popeye but Betty Boop as well, wanted to thank animators for making the move from New York to their new Florida studio. And he wanted to do this by having a Welcome to Miami party. And according to these animators that attended, there was a special thank you video shown with Popeye and Betty Boop. It was fully animated with complete backgrounds, voice acting, and a music score, and a stylized Florida landscape. It was said to be very funny and starred Popeye coming to visit Betty in Miami, where she gives him a extremely warm welcome. And one of the scenes included Popeye wearing, losing energy during the act and needing to eat some of his trademark spinach to finish the job, so to speak. It was then said that after the party, the film was locked in a safe at Fleischer Studios in Florida and never publicly shown again, but only being shown to special guests of Fleischer himself. And apparently that's where it stayed until 1942, when the Fleischer brothers were kicked out of their studio and ultimately the reel vanished. Since the article, though, in 2003, interest was renewed in potentially finding this, and some users on the Toon Zone forum where this was first kind of revealed have said that they have seen the short in animated pornography tapes in the 1980s, I guess, maybe like on a compilation. But these also have never been found, and ultimately it's unknown where this might be, and even if the article itself was truthful. So it's ultimately a mystery. My take, I definitely think this one existed. Though I think given its history and its disappearance and the time it was created, I think and there was only one print, I think it's long gone. But fortunately, if there's anyone out there who just really wants to see Popeye and Betty Boop going at it, you can probably type in their names, add the word Rule 34, and probably get even way better animated and drawn images of that to your heart's content. Unlike the Mickey Mouse one, which I feel is almost more of a parable than it is an actual thing that happened, I definitely could see this being real, and I definitely think it was, but it has probably been lost to time. And that's the video, guys. I want to thank you for joining me today for Volume 1 of Lesser Known Lost Media. Volume 2 is already in the works, so I hope you'll join us again for that. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I want to give you a challenge to help me gain the following that I would like in order to help my business grow. If you can share this video around, if you can help me get to 50 followers, I will do a miniature giveaway. We're going to keep it simple this time, not like the last time I tried to do this and nobody ended up voting and it was kind of a whole bust. But no, this time, once I hit 50 followers in my the next video after that, I will give instructions on how to enter the contest and what mini you could potentially win. And I think for the time being, every time I amass another 50 followers, we'll do another giveaway. And there will be other giveaways too, but the more this channel grows, the more free stuff I will potentially give out. So again, like, comment, subscribe, share, go to the links, maybe buy a mini. The more minis I sell, the more videos I make. But until next time, everybody, I'm Mr. Sean. Thank you for joining me on Chimera Miniatures official YouTube channel, and I hope you alpha great day and an even beta tomorrow. Bye-bye.